Good morning, everyone. Phil Rigdon here, pastor at St. John Lutheran Church and School. It's a joy to be with you, and I pray, or rather I hope, that your Easter was a blessing for you and that you're safe as we celebrate and continue to all year the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And let's take a moment to sing, and that is "We Come to Praise You." We'll sing the first verse. Heavenly Father, we come to praise you and to say thank you here in our song for all the gifts you give through your goodness, showing your love for giving our own. All right, something to touch base on today. We're looking at, it's kind of like, well, hey, why would we go backward to the cross and to his suffering and death? There's some good stuff to get before we move on and move into the kind of the rest of Jesus's ministry. Let's take a look at a passage. I won't talk anymore here. We'll share, and we're going to bring this up fully so that you can see what I'm talking about. All right, now, first of all, I love to use images that you'll see there. If you can't see it clearly, what you want to think of is the Israelites. They're out in the wilderness, they're thirsty, and you see Moses. He is the one with his arm up, and he's got his staff there, and he's in the orange robe with the brown kind of underclothing, his robe. And so what's happening there? Moses, of course, is using his staff at the Lord's bidding to strike the rock. And what happens when the water comes out? What happens when the water comes out? The water comes out, right? So our devotion today is looking at a cool connection between the cross of Christ, his death on the cross, and what happens here. Remember, the Old Testament is always pointing to Jesus. So let's read. All right, Matthew 27. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split. All right, the rocks were split. Remember what we just said from Exodus. 52, the tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And the coming out of the tombs after the resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the centurion and those who were watching him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, truly this was the Son of God. All right, so let's go back and take a look especially at verse 51. Verse 51, and behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two. We talked about that in a previous devotion. From top to bottom, and the earth shook and the rocks were split. The rocks were split. Now, there's a number of connections we can make there which are really chilling. First of all, okay, what happens to Jesus? All right, well, let me make this connection. When you look at Moses and striking the rock in the Old Testament, who is that pointing to? I hope you can connect there very easily. Jesus. God is pointing to Jesus when Moses strikes the rock and the water comes out. A couple of connections we can make there. First of all, the earth shakes, and what splits when Jesus dies? When Jesus dies, the rocks are split. All right, so that's one connection, connecting his death to Christ, to Moses in the Old Testament and the water. Another one is what happens when they spear Jesus in the side. They want to make sure he's dead so they can take him off the cross. What do? They pierce his side, and what comes out? Blood connecting to Holy Communion, water connecting to baptism. All right, so we're going to draw that out again. Moses in the Old Testament, people are thirsty, strikes the rock opens, water comes out, and that points to Jesus. Jesus dies on the cross. Out of him comes the water and the blood. Again, the water pointing to salvation, and the rocks open up. In other words, the splitting of the rock, the splitting of Christ's side, the splitting of the rock is pointing to his death and, of course, what he gives to us. If you want to make a connection, if you read in C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, what happens when Aslan dies? The rock, the altar on which he is slain, breaks open. All right, that's a part of that story, and it's a cool thing. So in a next video or in a subsequent video, we'll take a look at this issue of people rising from the dead after Jesus dies on the cross. All right, so let's stop share, and praying that this devotion was a blessing for you, and always stay safe. Please check out all of our ministry going on at our website, Facebook, and also YouTube. Blessings to you. Take care.